Continuing on in Genesis chapter 2 today, we're looking more at humanity's relationship in and with the garden. Verses 8 through 17 are kind of the section that I'm drawing mainly from. Encourage you to read that on your own, either after this, or maybe you can pause now, read it, and then continue. Again, the ancient cultures were looking at trying to understand what is our relationship with God, with creation, with one another. And here we see the relationship with creation and God. God planted a garden, Eden. That word Eden has kind of the picture behind it of delight and fertility. So this was a place of flourishing. Humanity was placed into a garden to flourish and to fellowship with God. And it was also a place for work. So we see in verse 15 that they were to tend and to watch, as some English translations put it. But these Hebrew words are actually the same words that are spoken of for workers in the temple later on in the Old Testament, that the Levites were to tend and watch the temple. And so that just reinforces this understanding we are to have of Genesis 1 and 2, that God is creating a temple space for humanity to dwell in with Him. Again, temples were the dwelling place for God. And so here is humanity being placed into that temple space to dwell with God, tending and watching this Eden, this garden temple space. The Garden of Eden was also a place of freedom. God gave a command: be fruitful, multiply, cultivate, tend, and watch. Only one restriction: don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so in the garden, from the very beginning, was freedom, was work, was flourishing, was fellowship, but was also a test or opportunity to show allegiance to God. And that's what these two trees were and symbolize. Again, I see the text showing there's historical trees, but these trees also symbolize something that will be running through the rest of the scriptures. And this is the idea of these trees represented and provided a choice. These trees were at the center of the garden, meaning the only way to get to the tree of life meant you basically had to walk by the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or a better translation might be the tree of knowing good and bad, because it's not just knowing moral evil, it's knowing how to live and what's a way not to be living. It's more general than just moral knowledge. It's just a general how to live life to the full. And these trees represent this choice. Essentially, are we going to receive knowledge because God wants us to have knowledge? But are we going to receive the knowledge of how to live from Him, the tree of life? Or are we going to take, and that is a word that we'll see coming up in Genesis 3, are we going to take from the tree of knowing good and bad, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Are we going to take for ourselves how to live? So in other words, are we going to live according to God's design and listening to His voice and following His lead in obedience and submission? Or are we going to take for ourselves and set our own agenda and do things our own way? This will be a theme, again, we will see throughout the scriptures, and especially in the Old Testament, you see these verbs of taking. Whenever humanity looks to take knowledge, to do what is right in their own eyes, to use a phrase from the book of Judges, it never turns out well. So here's the question for today. Are you receiving how to live from God? Or are you determining how you want to live on your own terms? We all do this and face this choice every day. How are you choosing for yourself. As you ponder that, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. And today, may you find his peace. God bless.